That's a pretty nice setup, huh? Jeez. He stepped up. What's going on? What's up?
How's this process for the coaching staff? Hell, personnel guys been working forever on this, but you guys getting caught up at the conference this week to get
Yeah, this is it's a giant process, and the guys don't work on it just in the weeks leading in. They've been doing it year round, and we respect the job that they do tremendously, and we fit into their world here when we can. And so our guys are doing evaluations, and they're here doing interviews and just trying to help gather the information that's so important to us. The combine's one major spot here that we can all gather and do our work, but yet this is just part of it. And so there's a lot of stuff going on behind the scenes, and the coaching staff is an integral part, but yet really we're supporting all of the great work that our guys do.
Coaching changes, Rocky settled even in particular. What I guess can you just talk about that, and if you've kind of made any other additions to it?
Yeah, Rock's going into the ministry, and it's something that he's been working towards for a long time, and I've been supporting him towards this end for a long time, and so it's really a beginning for him. And matter of fact, he next couple weeks he kind of gets introduced down in L.A., and it's a really big deal. So something that we'll miss the heck out of him. We've been together forever, and we'll still stay connected as always. We will, but I'm really thrilled for him because it's a big deal, and he's going to make a major impact on a lot of people's lives, and he's really looking forward to that.
You guys have had a lot of success with defensive backs, your DBs. Just what are the qualities that you look for when you're scouting and developing DBs, kind of intangibles?
You want the height, weight, speed, and lengths, and all that kind of stuff. Well, it's it's a very unique position, and it calls for a makeup, a mentality first. Before the physical part of it, and so we're looking for guys that have the right mentality, guys that are willing to be challenged, willing to know that they're on the hot seat and they're going to have to bounce back and be very resilient, and have a really good mental state for that. And then there's all kinds of different sizes, weights, and speeds. I mean, if you just look at Earl Thomas and look at Cam Chancellor, those guys both play safeties for us, and they're great players, and they couldn't be farther at the opposite end of the spectrums in size, weight, and speed, and all of that. So not so much speed. So it just depends, and we've been through so much over the years. We've coached so many different styles of guys and so many great players that have been, such individuals in their makeup that, I can't tell you that there's one way. There's certain aspects we look for, and it just depends on what kind of player he is, what kind of athlete he is, how his speed fits with his size and weight and all that kind of junk. And so I told you absolutely nothing, okay, is what was my goal there.
Pete, when you have such limited time with the players here, how do you measure or evaluate their competitive spirit?
This is just one opportunity. There's a lot that goes into that, and that takes a long time because you're checking and fact-checking and doing all of the background work that you can, and that work starts from the moment that we are able to gather information.
The NFL Combine experience is now open.
Oh, is that awesome? And this is it right here. So this is just one part of it, and the guys are really on guard right now. So this is just one aspect, but it is one that we get to put them in a common situation, one that we're used to, and we can compare years past and all the information that we've gathered. The scouts really do the great work behind the scenes, at the setup at the schools with all of the people that are available to us: strength coaches, assistant coaches, head coaches, anybody that we can gather information. All of the interviews the guys can do, all of that stuff is all important to us. And again, this is just one part of it.
What type of role has CJ Prosise carved out in the offense?
Well, he's carved out a very small one so far because he hasn't played very much. But CJ, we feel like we really found the kind of guy that we were hoping to find. He can do the things we would like him to do, which is a variety of stuff. He's a running back first. He's a pass catcher. He's a guy that can get out of the backfield and line up as a wide receiver, as he did in college, which was part of one of the attractions to him, that we were getting a wide receiver and a running back, got two guys in one in a sense. You have to look at our games to watch us when he was available, which was just a couple. When he was there, he was instrumental. Was fun to have on our side. It was great for Bev to be able to use him in the various ways, and he was very effective. He had long runs, he had long passes, he had tough runs, he ran inside, he ran outside, he did all of that stuff for us. We have no hesitation at all in what we can do with him. We just got to get him available. He's just.
Rawls just the clear lead.
No, Yeah, our team is all about competition, and that every time we come back to camp, it's going to start all over again. Guys have made statements of who they are, and then they have to come back and reestablish that, and then take it as far as they can. There's nothing in the way of CJ. Thomas Rawls is a terrific player on our team too, who had a very difficult season. He was banged up all year, so those two guys come back to camp really raring to go, and we're looking forward to that.
Sean said yesterday that Deshaun's not going to be probably back on the field until after the season starts. And he said Earl and Tyler did great, so that's it to say that you expect them at the start of the season.
Yeah, I don't think there's any reason not to say that for those two guys. Both those guys have a really good chance to be there as we kick off the season. I would be a little bit more optimistic that you don't know. Deshaun is such an extraordinary healer and competitor. I wouldn't put any limits on him right now, but it wouldn't be unlikely that he might go into the season before he's ready to go. But I don't want to. I wouldn't. He's just too much of a battler, and he can do some marvelous things.
Running backs today, you look at Atlanta, they had two really good guys, that use multiple backs. Assessing the draft is more important today to have a stable of running backs.
It's interesting you ask that because I haven't asked that question for maybe 15 years. Is it important today to have two running backs rather than just one guy? I've always thought that it's really valuable when you can have two guys or three guys that you can work, and have not had any hesitation to go all the way back to our college days, and still feel like that. If there's a guy that's so dominant that nobody else deserves the play time, then you've got a great one. And so I don't know if it's any more so, to answer your question, no, I don't think any more so today than before. We've always been an advocate of like a 1-2 punch kind of formula.
Specifically, Earl Thomas, will he be ready for the start of the season?
I think so, yeah. All the indications are that he will make it back. He's doing very well.
Coach, what do you expect in this draft in order to get like the offensive linemen you need for your team?
Regardless of the position, we're looking for competition. We're looking to make the guys that are on our roster better. If guys can take their jobs, then we got better. And there's no place where we don't look for that. So wherever we can make the roster more competitive, we know we're getting better. So if we can find a guy that could start, that would be great. If we can find a guy that can push the guys that are there, that's what we'd expect to happen. So we expect that to happen across the board. This is a draft. We have a lot of picks. It's a draft that we're excited about, and in our positions where we're picking and all, I think that we have a chance to have another really cool draft. So hopefully we can just get more competitive. That's really what we're always after.
You also, there's in Mexico City, there's a Pop Warner football team called the Seahawks, and obviously all these kids, they are excited every time they see your team. What would be your message for those kids who play in Mexico City?
Well, we'd love to see them compete like we do. Every time they go out there playing, win, and play great football, and I love hearing that the Seahawks are in Mexico City. I didn't know that, but I'm going to be rooting for them.
How do you evaluate your wide receiver position? Do you see that as a need right now in terms of adding to the competition?
Well, how you would see it as a need and how we would see it as a need are probably two different things. We're always trying to get better. We're always looking for guys that can help us. And this is exactly like I just said. If there's a guy out there that can come in there and make our team, then he's going to be a good football player. If he can push for playing time, he's going to be an extraordinary player. If he can start and beat a guy out, we would be thrilled to see that happen. It doesn't matter what position group we're talking about. I love our guys. Our guys can make plays. They've got great chemistry with the quarterback. Russell knows what he's getting from all of our guys. But that doesn't mean that we're not going to try to find somebody that can help us, and that's across the board. So it's not only pertaining to that position.
Today's college offensive linemen, how far are they ready to get into the NFL in an offense?
It depends. I think we're seeing more now than ever. The accumulation of the years of guys being in spread offenses and guys in 2-point stances all the time, that does not lend itself to guys coming off the football. But there are plenty of programs. Maybe not enough, but there's plenty of programs in college football that still run the football with an attitude and an approach much more like what we do, and those guys are valuable to us. When they do. We know that there's a process that guys have to go through this transition, depending on where they come from and what their style of coaching was and the play style. So we take all of that into account. Of course, it's a factor more so than ever. Guys can spend their whole high school career and their whole college career and never get in a stance. And that's something we have to train guys and transition them to do.
With where you are in the offensive line, are you more leaning toward guys from programs who do get in a stance and drive?
It's a factor. It just depends, it depends on the individual too, and some guys can get it done during the off season and they can make the transition and you never knew the difference. It just depends on the individual, and we have to make all of those assessments. When a guy's been trained in a program for 4 or 5 years and he's had his hand on the ground and he's been coming off the football and 9-on-7 drills and the kinds of attitude drills that we're used to counting on, they have a certain value for that, for sure.
What are your thoughts on friend Ed Orgeron getting the job at LSU, and how do you think he'll do?
Oh man, I can't be more excited for one of the guys that I spent time with and coaching. Ed and I had a great time at SC, and he was the first guy that that I found to hire when I was there, and it was the biggest loss that I had when somebody left. It was really hard to replace him for all of the things that he brings and all of the things I'm sure he brings to the LSU. I know he brings to the LSU program. Even when he was the head coach at SC, everybody could tell he had a tremendous impact. And so when he goes here, and you've already heard the responses from the players and the people around him, they can tell that he has a tremendous impact on how they think and how they operate and how they'll represent a great university. He's a blast, and I love him. So I couldn't be more happy and more in support, and we'll stay connected through all of the challenges and stuff. We share all of our ideas and stuff whenever we can.
Sort of widening gap between college and pro schemes. Are there positions where you're more likely to be patient with a guy in his first year, or do you see rookies differently than maybe you did in the 90s because of that?
It depends. Again, it depends on the individual guy. I don't think we should nail it as far as programs because it depends on some kids can make a transition and it doesn't make any difference at all. So it goes to the individual. We just have to assess them and take time and figure it out. And if the guy does need more time, then we have to, if it's the opportunity is available, then we give him more time. If not, we got to go on and move on to the next guy. But we have an understanding, by the time we get to where we're picking guys, we know them well enough to know what we're getting into for the most part. And then we can't really get it done until we get our hands on them. But we've pretty much, figured that out. And some guys we will say, he's got to get a little stronger, he's got to get a little more this, a little more that, before he's going to be a frontline player. There's no question that happens. I'll give you an example. And this is one for like Nick Van Nett. Nick Van Nett came to us. We thought Nick could be a really nice run blocker for us. We didn't know how adept he would be in the passing game. We weren't able to assess that the way we'd like to. It took us 2 or 3 days, and we could see that he had a natural feel for catching the football and running routes, and Russell could sense that immediately within the first couple days we were on the practice field, and we knew that he could be more than we thought he could be, and we're really excited about him coming back. And he was in a great program, did all kinds of stuff, a variety of blocking schemes and principles, but it took us to get him on our field where we could really tell exactly what he was all about, and it's just positives added on to positives for him, and he's going to be a big factor for us as we move forward. So it just depends on the guys.
Gus goes back to being a defensive coordinator this year with the Chargers. How important was he to your kind of success in Seattle, and what kind of energy is he going to bring to a room?
Well, Gus is one of a kind now. He's an extraordinary individual. There's nobody that has a better outlook on life and football and work and dealing with people than Gus. He's a beautiful person, and he had a great impact on our program. He set things in motion for us on the defensive side of the ball in a way that we've worked to maintain over the years, and so he set a big standard for us. So he's going to be a big factor for them, and he's going to help the transition. I just happened to have a chance to run into Anthony, and he's got a great one, and he'll find a great soldier and a great comrade in going through this thing. It's Gus is he's one of a kind.
Coach, it's been well documented your involvement in inner city Los Angeles. Why does that continue? Why do you continue staying involved in that community, and why is that important to you?
Well, it's always been because it's necessary. It's just necessary. It's necessary for people from the outside to take a look and figure out what's going on to the extent that they can find a way to help. The need is extraordinary, and I've never been able to turn away from it. I haven't been able since I left to be as involved as I would like to, and we've had. It's been an issue for me that I haven't been able to, but I continue to send support and do what we can. Just look around our country and look how many places are hot spots for concerns and issues in inner city areas. Mostly because people from the outside don't spend the time and the effort to get into it and figure out where the help is needed. I'm glad you bring it up because it couldn't be more pertinent right now. And one of the great things that we figured out in LA that I thought was, there are a lot of people that will attest to it, that the relationship between the community and law enforcement was really connected through the individual intervention workers that were from the community that were willing to take on the relationship with the law enforcement, and the law enforcement particular people that were willing to take on the relationship with the people from the community, that blended a relationship that, like in the Los Angeles area, has never been more impacting. And so there's a lot of work to be done, a lot of stuff that has to be done before the real good work can get done in the community. You first have to stop the violence, and that connection only comes through community members dealing with law enforcement. And so I just hope that people will continue to keep battling, because there's a way. And I hope we see some more success, some more positive stories.
With a little more time removed from the end of the season, do you have any different views?
Did you want to write the hamstrings on that one?
Well, you don't play Sunday.
Okay.
Just if you had any sort of different view, I mean, if 6 weeks has given you any sort of different sense of kind of your overview of last season and sort of where you feel like you are now and what you need to do to get better, and going into next year, and sort of how you approach this offseason in that regard.
And the question is?
I guess the question is just if you feel like if the passage of time has just kind of given you any sort of different view.
Yeah, I think it does. Yes, because we have the opportunity to get back to work at it. You know, it's one thing to have the impressions of the season, and then as always, it's to get to the truth of it. And it takes us quite a while to go through that. It's a rigorous process we go through, because we have to uncover everything that's out there for us in terms of the information to understand what happened and what we need to adjust and what direction we're going to go in so many different aspects of everything. You know, I mean, that's just what an off-season is, regardless of how much success you had. So we're well underway. The combine kind of jolts that process somewhat, but we're well underway with working our way through the gathering of the information and making sense of it, setting sights on how we're going to move forward, and it's a really exciting time for coaches. It's a big time of the year for us that we really enjoy. Much different than the in-season, and I think we continue to grow with the information, you know, and we're understanding more so. I think we have a very big energy to continue to adjust and to adapt, and where that comes from is really from the players. It's from the style of players that we have, the development level that they're at, where we think we can take them, and all of that. The philosophy really doesn't change. The philosophy grows and it you know, kind of finds its way through the use of the players and what they're capable of doing. And our players change from year to year. The guy isn't the same. Just because he was last year one way doesn't mean he's going to be the same this year. Things are always adjusting, and we have to stay abreast of that and see how we can make the most and maximize that.
Pete, you and John Schneider have done a very good job.
John
Schneider.
Oh, Schneider.
You know, have done a very good job.
Sorry, John.
In the lower rounds of getting good players and really valuable players. Is it harder to find those guys in the lower rounds, or is it harder to judge people in the upper rounds, or is there not necessarily a connection with?
Yeah, that's a good one to say. Yes, that's right. Yeah, it's hard to do it on this end. It's hard to do it on that end. It's a huge challenge, and I don't think it's any different challenge. You don't have more information or more game tape to look at from the guys that are on top and on the bottom. And sometimes you can not have as much accessibility to some of the guys, but that's what our scouts are doing year round, and they're developing their relationship with the players so that they can come to an understanding of who we're dealing with. We don't see any round more valuable than any other round. That we're going through it, and we go 9, 10, 11, 12. I mean, how many picks can we get? And the free agent guys that we're able to sign are so extraordinarily important to us. And just look at our numbers again. I don't know, it was half of our roster again was undrafted players. So, it's obvious that it's a big deal to us, and that doesn't mean that they're lesser players. They're just guys that maybe just weren't picked up along the way and didn't quite see the things, and we found a way to make them work. So I think it has a lot to do with our coaching staff as well. I don't think it's just the choices that we make. I think it's the willingness and the approach of developing those guys and giving them the opportunity, as opposed to saying, okay, here's the guys we're really focusing on, and these guys are just going to fill some spots. We don't do it that way. Everybody on our roster is extraordinarily valuable to us. We're going to try to see how far we can take them. So that's a combination of all that makes it happen.
We got to see some really exciting plays out of Paul Richardson down the stretch. Can you just kind of talk about what you're seeing with him?
Yeah, I think it was incredibly fun to see him contribute in that way, because we'd seen him in the draft process being a player that could be a dynamic, explosive football player, and then he got banged up. He had this and that, and he had just stuff that got in the way of him just getting to the front line where he could really show it. As soon as he got a great shot this year, he just took off and went. It didn't hesitate. He didn't hesitate at all. And so we know we have a dynamic football player. He's not just a speed guy down the field like you might think. He's a very good route runner. He's in and out of his breaks with lightning quickness. And he's come through and played really tough football for us. So I know Paul feels this way. Our coaches all feel this way. We can't wait to get started again and pick up where we left off.
Would he be the flanker? Is that what is?
He can play all spots. Yeah.
How are you weighing the need for continuity on that offensive line against getting older, getting a player more experienced?
We weigh it very carefully. Yeah, what's important to us is that we develop, and there's opportunities. John probably talked to, there's opportunities along the way. Here's free agency's coming up next week, and we have a chance to do some things there. We'll see what's available to us very aggressively and very actively, as we'll go into the draft process in the same fashion, and we'll go right through the whole season developing our young guys. One thing that we do know that our young guys are going to get better, and they're going to make hopefully a significant first year to second year jump like most players do, and that will really help us as we move forward. But we need to make those positions as competitive as possible. If we can bring in a guy to take a spot, we got better. If we can bring in a guy that makes another guy have to play better to hold his spot, we're getting better. And that's just the basic thinking that we have. And so we're going to, every step along the way, we're going to try to max it out.
Did you have the same holy cow premonition that John Schneider had when George Fant was at left tackle in the middle last year?
Well, we probably in varying degrees we did that. We were very surprised that he was able to even compete. It was a shock that he could compete, but he showed that quite early that he was physically capable, and then he was a beautiful competitor as well. Had a great mentality for going for it. He wasn't overwhelmed by it, and then he did a terrific job to take it as far as he did. He was under the gun a bunch. It was as hard as you can get for a young guy, and just that's the way it worked out with the injury situation and his opportunity to take advantage of it. But he should grow more than anybody can possibly grow. He's played less than anybody, so hopefully he'll make a big jump for us.
Your starter right now, left tackle?
Yeah, he's our left tackle.
Surprised your comments about Richard and his injury sort of became what they did, and obviously I guess you're glad it was resolved.
Yeah, I was. You guys saw me. I was caught off guard a little bit. That was so remarkable on the outside, but understandably, I can see why there was concern. That it all worked out just the way it should have.
This time last year, you did a big recovery. How excited are you for with full offseason work with Russell?
Yeah, it's really one of the beautiful things that are happening this offseason is Jimmy has a chance to work out and get better. He was just rehabbing. If you can imagine, at this time last year, he was looking at that scar and wondering if it's ever going to go away. Is he ever going to be able to run again? And he barely made it back to camp, and then barely made it into the season, but had a marvelous season under all of those circumstances. Under just any normal circumstance, he had a marvelous season. So in communicating with him, he feels great. He's thrilled about the chance to work out. He's going to be working with Russell wherever they get together and do their thing. They're looking forward to that. They didn't have the chance to do that last year. He couldn't run. He couldn't work out. So, and the amazing thing, he had such a good season with under those circumstances. So we're really looking forward to what comes up. And I know he is too, and everybody's pumped up about it.
How much have you talked to Earl, and sort of where is he? I mean, it seemed like obviously when he got hurt, it was a real...
Yeah, that was a big shock. It was a big shock to him, and he had never been injured before like that. And he's feeling very competitive about it, and he's going for it, and his mentality is strong, and he's looking forward to getting right.
Pete, you've been very open your whole time in Seattle about bringing in undrafted guys, relatively inexperienced guys. How much of that, your whole time at SC, you're cycling through entire rosters every couple of years. How much did your college experience sort of inform the way you do things now?
I think it had a lot to do with it, honestly. I think it's a good question. We had 110 guys, and we'd go through thousands of guys, through camps and stuff, and seeing, athletes go through, and we're trying to figure it all out how it would work. And there was the walk-on element too. There was a lot to all of that. It seemed much. Was kind of the college seemed to facilitate the chance of moving a guy from offense to defense and back and forth. We moved guys around a lot to try to figure out where they could fit, which we still do now at times, and so I think it all had a lot to do with it. And being in charge of the roster then, and the acquisition of the players and all of that, has really helped my outlook and how we do things here. And working with John, it's been a dream for us to put this thing together because we see so much this whole process alike. But it did have a big factor, and it's a good question. Yeah, I know you stand there, Gary. You can't hide behind this thing forever now. You used to ducking like this.
Anything else? Pete, with your background in college coaching and then your passion talk over there before about LA and work with young people, what were your thoughts when you heard that Joe Mixon and other players who have some off-field issues were not allowed to be here at the combine?
Well, I think it's part of the process, and part of the life that everybody lives. You're held accountable for your actions and all, and so we just try to do the best we can with our guys and help them as much as possible so that they can have all of the opportunities that are available. And it's no different working with kids in the streets and working with our players or working with our family members. We're trying to help them be the best they can be, and to figure out what it takes to get that done. Sometimes people have to take steps backwards to take steps forward, and our way of looking at it is always to be there to support our guys and always be there to help them when they do their good things and when they do their bad things, and so that they know that they have a chance to rectify and get right. And so hopefully in his case that he'll be able to do that too.
The young guys on Gary Gilliam's a restricted free agent. Do you anticipate him back, or is he going to kind of?
Yeah, we do.
What did you tell the Falcons about Steve Sarkisian and how he fulfilled their
I didn't have to tell them much because Danny had already had Sark in and had visited with him in the offseason. He knew him from the time that he was with us, well before Danny was thinking about being a head coach. So he worked that out, and I I supported whatever, whenever I had the opportunity. But really, that kind of happened organically through their work that they had done in relationship from the offseason. So that's a beautiful thing. It's a great opportunity for Sark, and he's going to do a terrific job for Dan.
Lofa Tatupu was left as well? Or?
Yeah, Lofa really made the choice to get out of coaching. He did, he took a good look at it. I loved having him with us. I loved competing with Lofa. He's always been one of my favorite guys I ever got a chance to work with, and he did a great job for us. But he had family concerns and issues that he wanted to make sure and attend to. He'd spent a lot of his years in big time football, and he wanted to make sure and do everything he could to make his family as strong and as healthy as possible.
Go with one linebacker coach now?
Johnny Glenn will move up, and he'll be in the number 2 spot there.
With a player like Jabril Peppers, where his pro position may depend on where he goes, I mean, how do you scout a player like that? Do you just evaluate traits and then say where does he fit in our system, or?
Yes.
Okay. I mean, what I mean is.
Yeah, I mean he's so versatile that you have to make your decisions, and I think you're right. Some teams may look at him differently than others. I mean, he's just that gifted of an athlete.
And you said you're sort of willing to play with positions, move guys from spot.
I
to
kind of
spot.
have been. I don't know if I would say play with it, but yeah, I do know what you mean. Yeah, yes. I mean, yes. We are open for those kinds of thoughts. We don't ever want to turn our back on an opportunity to see something special or unique about a player, and he's one of the guys that he does challenge you in that way.
You guys signed Paris Cox. Paris Cox, where do you see him fitting in?
Well, he's going to fit right into the competition. We know a lot about him. He's been with us, and we've played against him. He's always been a playmaker, and a very versatile player, and has a real nice style. Add him into the competition, see where it goes.
Inside or outside, or
he's done both, but he's played more outside. As we've seen him.
Okay, thank you.
All right. See it.